Henry of the Silver Tongue, the untold story of Patrick Henry. Greetings, esteemed viewers. Today, we embark on a comprehensive exploration of Patrick Henry, an iconic yet often underappreciated figure in American history. We delve deep into the complexities of colonial America during the mid-18th century, a period characterized by burgeoning discontent and the seeds of revolution. The conclusion of the 7 Years' War in 1763, known in the colonies as the French and Indian War, significantly reshaped the geopolitical landscape of North America. Great Britain emerged victorious, securing vast territories including Canada. Yet, this triumph bore a heavy price. The national debt soared to over £130 million, equivalent to approximately $21 billion today when adjusted for inflation. To alleviate this fiscal strain, the British government turned to its American colonies, imposing taxes that would ignite the embers of revolution. In this crucible of tension, leaders emerged from diverse arenas. Military strategists like General George Washington and his aides, Nathaniel Greene, Daniel Morgan, Francis Marion, and Israel Putnam, crafted the tactical framework of resistance. Concurrently, intellectual and political luminaries wielded the power of rhetoric to galvanize public sentiment. Among these figures stood Patrick Henry of Virginia and Samuel Adams of Massachusetts, men whose eloquence and strategic acumen positioned them as leaders among leaders. Patrick Henry's early life. Patrick Henry was born on May 29, 1736, at Studley Plantation in Hanover County, Virginia. His father, Colonel John Henry, an emigrant from Aberdeen, Scotland, was a man of scholarly inclination, educated at King's College. His mother, Sarah Winston Syme, hailed from a prominent local family. Despite this lineage, young Patrick exhibited a pronounced indifference to formal education. Educated primarily at home by his father, Patrick demonstrated proficiency in reading and writing, but showed little interest in classical studies or the meticulous discipline required for scholarly pursuits. Instead, he immersed himself in the Virginian wilderness, developing a keen appreciation for nature and honing his observational skills. Patrick's adolescence was marked by a series of unremarkable endeavors. At the age of 15, he began working as a clerk in a local mercantile store, an opportunity to learn trade practices. However, his dispassion for commerce led to minimal progress. His true talents remained obscured beneath a veneer of mediocrity. In 1752, his father endeavored to secure his future by financing a business partnership between Patrick and his older brother William. The enterprise, a general store, struggled from inception due to inadequate management and the economic fluctuations of the colonial economy. Within a year, the business collapsed, burdened by debt. Undeterred by failure, Patrick married Sarah Shelton in 1754, receiving a modest farm as part of her dowry. Attempting to cultivate tobacco and other crops, he faced the harsh realities of agrarian life, poor soil quality, adverse weather, and his own inexperience. By 1757, the farm succumbed to economic pressures, compelling Henry to return to mercantile pursuits. A second attempt at storekeeping fared no better, culminating in bankruptcy. Yet, despite these setbacks, Henry maintained an optimistic disposition, frequently entertaining at social gatherings with his violin and engaging storytelling, traits that hinted at his latent oratorical prowess. The turning point, embracing the law. By 1760, at the age of 24 and with a growing family to support, Patrick Henry confronted the pressing need to redefine his vocational trajectory. Recognizing the limitations of his prior endeavors, Henry turned his attention to the legal profession. He discerned that his adeptness in discourse and natural persuasion could be effectively channeled within the courtroom, a realm where ideas and rhetoric held sway. Henry's unconventional approach to legal studies involved an intensive 6-week period of self-education, during which he immersed himself in foundational legal texts such as Sir Edward Coke's Institutes of the Laws of England and William Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England. Despite the brevity of his preparation, he presented himself for examination before a panel of distinguished attorneys in Williamsburg. Initially met with skepticism, Henry's examiners, men like Robert Carter Nicholas and Edmund Pendleton, were nevertheless impressed by his incisive reasoning and the originality of his interpretations. In April 1760, he was granted his license to practice law. Returning to Hanover County, Henry's legal practice flourished rapidly. His empathetic approach and ability to articulate complex legal concepts in accessible language endeared him to clients across the socio-economic spectrum. His reputation was bolstered by his keen understanding of local issues and his unwavering commitment to justice. The Parsons Cause case, Patrick Henry's first major case, the Parsons Cause, served as the crucible in which his legal and rhetorical skills were both tested and revealed. During the mid-18th century, Virginia's economy was heavily reliant on tobacco, both as a cash crop and as a standard for monetary transactions. Clergy of the Anglican Church, the state-established church, were entitled by statute to an annual salary of £16,000 of tobacco. This arrangement linked their income directly to the volatile fluctuations of the tobacco market. In 1755 and again in 1758, poor harvests led to a spike in tobacco prices, rendering the fixed salaries disproportionately burdensome to the laity responsible for tithes. The Virginia House of Burgesses enacted the Two-Penny Act, allowing debts payable in tobacco to be satisfied at a rate of 2 pence per pound regardless of the market price, effectively reducing the clergy's income during times of high prices. The clergy, perceiving this as an unlawful deprivation of their rightful compensation, petitioned the Crown. In August 1759, the Privy Council nullified the Two-Penny Act, declaring it unjust and asserting the necessity of royal assent, a direct challenge to colonial legislative autonomy. Reverend James Morey initiated legal proceedings to recover the difference in salary. The case, ostensibly about contractual remuneration, evolved into a broader contest over the limits of colonial self-governance and the extent of royal prerogative. When the case came to trial in Hanover County on December 1, 1763, the defendants selected Patrick Henry to represent them. Despite his relative inexperience, having been admitted to the bar for only 3 years, Henry was entrusted with this critical case due to his reputed speaking abilities and shared sentiment with the common people. The courtroom overflowed with spectators anticipating a landmark decision. Presiding over the case was Colonel John Henry, Patrick's own father, a circumstance that added personal complexity to the proceedings. Henry began his argument tentatively, but as he warmed to his subject, his delivery intensified. He boldly contended that the king, by disallowing a just law passed by the colonial legislature for the public good, had forfeited the allegiance of his subjects. This assertion challenged the foundational principles of the colonial relationship with the crown. His impassioned rhetoric captivated the jury. He framed the clergy's claim not just as an attempt to secure excessive compensation, but as an affront to the rights and welfare of the colony's citizens. The jury, swayed by his arguments, awarded Reverend Morey a mere 1 penny in damages, a nominal sum that signified a moral victory for the defendants and underscored the legitimacy of colonial legislative authority. Entry into politics and the Stamp Act. The triumph in the Parsons Cause propelled Patrick Henry into the political arena. In May 1765, he was elected to the Virginia House of Burgesses, positioning him at the epicenter of escalating tensions between the colonies and Great Britain. At 29, Henry joined the Assembly as one of its youngest members. His arrival coincided with the colonial reception of the Stamp Act, a parliamentary measure that intensified concerns over taxation and representation. The Stamp Act imposed a direct tax on the colonies, mandating the use of stamped paper for legal documents, newspapers, and other printed materials. The act represented Parliament's first attempt to levy a direct tax on the American colonies, bypassing the colonial legislatures entirely. The act was met with vehement opposition. Colonial leaders argued that it violated the principle of no taxation without representation, asserting that only their own elected assemblies held the legitimate authority to levy internal taxes. The act threatened both economic interests and constitutional rights, uniting disparate groups in common cause. With the legislative session drawing to a close, many senior burgesses hesitated to confront the issue directly, wary of provoking royal displeasure. Recognizing the critical need for action, Henry resolved to introduce a bold response. Patrick Henry's Resolves. On May 29, 1765, Patrick Henry presented a series of resolutions that would become known as the Virginia Resolves, a seminal moment in the assertion of colonial rights. Henry's resolutions declared that the colonists possessed the same liberties, privileges, franchises, and immunities as residents of Great Britain. The charters granted by the Crown confirmed these rights, including taxation solely by their own representatives. The General Assembly of Virginia had the exclusive right and power to levy taxes within the colony. Any attempt to vest such power in any person or body other than the General Assembly was illegal, unconstitutional, and unjust. The inhabitants of Virginia were not bound to obey any law imposing taxes upon them without this consent. During the heated debate, Henry delivered an electrifying speech. He invoked historical precedents of resistance to tyranny, stating, "Caesar had his Brutus, Charles I his Cromwell, and George III may profit by their example. If this be treason, make the most of it." The audacious comparison of King George III to overthrown monarchs shocked the assembly, eliciting cries of treason. Yet, Henry stood undaunted. Despite intense opposition, 4 of the 5 resolutions passed, with the 5th being adopted in some accounts, but later expunged from the official record. The resolves were published widely, igniting a firestorm of resistance throughout the colonies. They directly influenced subsequent declarations, including those of the Stamp Act Congress in October 1765. The spark of revolution. Patrick Henry's resolutions served as a catalyst for unified colonial opposition, a decisive step toward revolution. Contemporary observers recognized the significance of his stand. Historian George Bancroft later wrote, "Virginia rang the alarm bell for the continent." Henry's eloquence transformed abstract principles into a tangible call to action. Faced with widespread boycotts and protests, Parliament repealed the Stamp Act on March 18, 1766. However, the accompanying declaratory act asserted Parliament's authority to legislate for the colonies in all cases whatsoever, foreshadowing continued conflict. Subsequent years saw a series of confrontations. The Townshend Act, 1767, imposing duties on imports. The Boston Massacre, 1770, exacerbating animosity toward British troops. And the Tea Act, 1773, culminating in the Boston Tea Party. Throughout these events, Henry remained an influential figure, advocating for colonial rights and unity. Patrick Henry's enduring legacy. Patrick Henry's contributions during the Revolutionary era were multifaceted and enduring. At the Virginia Convention in March 1775, held in St. John's Church in Richmond, Henry delivered his most renowned speech. Amid debates over mobilizing for defense, he passionately argued that war was inevitable, declaring, "The war is actually begun. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle?" His concluding words, "Give me liberty or give me death," resonated profoundly, cementing his status as a symbol of the revolutionary spirit. Henry served as Virginia's first governor, 1776 to 1779, under its new constitution, and again from 1784 to 1786. His leadership helped navigate the state through the tumultuous war years. Although he declined invitations to the Constitutional Convention of 1787, citing distrust of centralized power, he participated in the Virginia Ratifying Convention of 1788, arguing ardently for individual liberties and advocating for a Bill of Rights. Thomas Jefferson, himself a principal architect of American democracy, acknowledged Henry's unique influence. In correspondence, Jefferson remarked, "He appeared to me to speak as Homer wrote. His eloquence was the lightning of the political sphere." Henry's ability to sway public opinion through impassioned discourse left an indelible mark on the nation's formation. Patrick Henry's life embodies the transformative power of conviction, eloquence, and unwavering dedication to principle. From unremarkable beginnings, he emerged as a formidable advocate for liberty. His journey underscores the impact that individual agency can have on the course of history, demonstrating that leadership is forged not solely through position or privilege, but through the courage to voice truth in the face of adversity. Henry's speeches did more than articulate dissent. They mobilized a movement. His rhetorical mastery harnessed the collective consciousness of the colonies, bridging regional divides and uniting diverse interests in the pursuit of a common cause. Today, as we reflect on the foundations of American democracy, Patrick Henry's legacy endures as a testament to the enduring power of words and ideas. His insistence on individual rights and skepticism of unchecked authority continue to inform contemporary discourse on governance and civil liberties.